Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing today? Okay, so this is the second time for me to try to film this video today. I'm really nervous to film this video. I'm honestly kind of scared to film this video. I got about 20 minutes in this video and I was reading text messages that I had received months ago from a source that had reached out to me about the Baumeister case and Fox Hollow Farms. And, you know, I was reading these text messages and there are some things that I have never shared on video that I am aware of. And I got to this point where I was like, you know what? This makes me nervous. And in that moment, I kind of understood why I think that people have not come out and spoken about this before. So let's rewind for a second. And I want to kind of talk to you guys. Tonight on Hulu is the premiere of a very extensive documentary about Baumeister, the serial killer, and Fox Hollow Farms. The documentary, hold on, I have it pulled up right here, is called Playground of a Serial Killer, Fox Hollow Murders. And it's a 4-part series that begins on Hulu tonight. You know, I think it's great that this documentary is coming out. It is 30 years in the making. I mean, Baumeister, I believe, passed away in 1996. So it's almost 30 years now that many of his victims have gone unnamed and their stories have never been told. So now there's a new investigation that's going on. Let me kind of give you the background story, and I'm going to read you this article here, just bits and pieces of it, so you guys know the background story to Baumeister and Fox Hollow Farms. And then I want to share with you a little bit about my personal story with it. I don't want to go in and rehash everything that I know, why I have a personal relationship to this case, on and on and on, because I've done so many videos at this point, but I do want to share some things with you guys about it. I was actually reached out to by 2 documentary production companies to be in 2 separate documentaries about Baumeister. A year ago, I came out with 2 videos. And in both videos, I cited that I had sources that knew that there was a huge cover-up that occurred with Baumeister, and basically said that Baumeister was the person that took the fall for this group of people. Now, what I read, and when I was reading these text messages earlier, I got into some pieces that I had never read before, so I'm not going to read all the pieces. But basically what I shared on here about a year ago was that my source had been contacted by somebody very close to the investigation, somebody that had been very close to Baumeister, that had called himself Baumeister's boyfriend, and that at that time, this person has never come out and spoke until this documentary, supposedly, allegedly, and that this person called himself Baumeister's boyfriend, even referred, and this part has really never come out before, that Baumeister referred to himself as Brian to this person, and this person is supposedly the one sole survivor of Baumeister. When I was talking to my source today, I was like, do you know for a fact that this is who the person is? He's like, I talked to him on the phone, I have the recordings, authorities have never wanted it, I've reached out to them, they have never asked for it. He was like, I mean, it was a phone call, I don't know, but I don't know why they would, you know, go to these lengths and make up the story of who they were. Wanting to tell their side of the story to clear their conscience of the role and the grand scheme of things that took place at Fox Hollow Farms. Talks in here about being the survivor, was involved in the crimes, and part-time lover to Brian, aka Baumeister, the name that Herb gave them when they met. Goes on to talk about how that in total this person told that there were 40 to 60 victims, and that the killings all started as rough sex where onlookers paid to watch, and that there was a team that procured the victims, brought them there, killed them, then cleaned up, and he said there was roughly a team of 6 to 8 people that was led by one person, and that Baumeister was the one that took the fall for it. So today, when I got up, I had another video that I was planned on filming and making, and that was my first video that I posted, but I felt like it was important to come out before the documentary comes out tonight and talk about this, because the person that is my source, that is ready to come out and speak about this, he's like, I'm going to be watching this very, very closely tonight. In fact, I think his exact words were, here, let me get down to, because I was asking him, I wanted to make sure that this person is who he said he was, and He said that this person speaks and shows his face for the very first time ever. You can see him in the trailer. And he says to him, I'm waiting to see if he confesses to Hulu what he did to me. And if he doesn't, then it'll probably be time for me to come out with my tapes and my evidence. And then I said this stuff to him, and he said, there's no way in hell that he says to Hulu what he said to me on the voice recording. Just no way. If so, FBI would be at his door before the first episode ends tonight. So it'll be really, really interesting to see what is shared in this documentary. I wanted to go in here and just quickly, I'm going to read from ABC News, which is the one that's putting out the documentary. New DNA technology and witness revelations expose dark secrets in Fox Hollow Farm case. Over the years, various notorious groups of murderers have gained national attention for their shocking crimes, including figures like Jeffrey Dahmer and John Wayne Gacy. However, one killer who is equally brutal in his crimes did not receive as much national recognition as Gacy or Dahmer. He was from Indiana, and his farm harbored a dark double life, ultimately claiming the lives of at least 13 men, according to investigators. I mean, even there, it's like, you know, we went to Fox Hollow Farms. They had the police investigations there. They say 29 men. So they're minimizing the amount of victims. The reason this story has always been so important to me, just to clarify this, I can remember going out. So I'm from Indianapolis. Her Baumeister's killing ground was Indianapolis. It was actually Westfield, Indiana, which is north of here. My cousin lives in Westfield. A lot of friends of mine live in Westfield. I grew up about 20 minutes from Westfield, probably 10 minutes from Westfield. I know that area very, very well. In fact, my highest viewed vlog on my vlog channel, Peter Vlogs, is a paranormal investigation that I did at Fox Hollow Farms after I posted my first couple of videos where I said that I could have met him out at a gay bar. I thought that maybe I had. So much has come out since then. The story, the more I tell it, the more people reach out to me, the more families of victims reach out to me and thank me for keeping the story alive. The more people that say, oh, I knew this or I knew that. It's crazy to me how many people have reached out to me since I started telling the story. I can remember, so I got sober in 1994. I was 22 and a half years old. This was at the time that her Baumeister, before that, was killing people. I can remember later with my roommate watching a documentary on A&E, and I think it was called something about, like, her husband was a murderer, and it was talking about her Baumeister's wife, Julie, and how they had owned the Save-A-Lot stores, and that she would go away and take her kids away for the weekend, and that he would go out to gay bars, and he would find intoxicated men, or he would find transient men that were sex workers or homeless gay men in the streets of Indianapolis. And then he would take them back. There are people that he didn't think that anybody would care if they were missing or not. And then he would take them back to Fox Hollow Farms, which was a farm. At that point, it had, like, it wasn't a farm, like a farmhouse. I mean, it was a mansion with a horse farm on it. And then he would have them get in the indoor pool, and he would strangle them, and then he would burn them in the burn pile in the woods. And mutilate them and things like that. This was going on at the time that I was going out to bars. So when my friend and I later, after I got sober, were watching this documentary, I'll never forget, she was like, this could have been you. I think that's originally how I started making this documentary. Years after I made the documentary, it was actually even after I did the paranormal investigation. When I was doing the paranormal investigation, there was a point when I asked the owner about the bathroom in the basement. I said, can I use your bathroom? And he was like, yeah. And I just started walking. He goes, something, it was now like a spa room or something. He goes, how did you know there used to be a bathroom there? There was, like, because the basement is massive. And I was like, I don't know. He goes, have you been here before? And I just was like, no, I've never been here before, whatever. Then later, my best friend and I, she and I were at a meeting, and we saw a friend of mine from back in the day that I hadn't seen in years and years and years, and he and I were talking after the meeting, and we were talking about, like, old times, partying, going out, whatever, and my friend Tanya said to him, she said, I'm just really glad that you guys never got taken or went out to her Baumeister's, that murderer's house or whatever, and he looked at me and goes, do you not remember we went to an after party there? And I go, what are you talking about? And he was like, yeah, it was you and me, and he said this other person's name, which would have been the only person that I would have been ever with him and, like, going somewhere after the bars with. And I was like, oh my God, I don't really have any recollection of it whatsoever, but apparently we went out there to some after party, and then he wanted us to get in the pool and things like that, and then we were like, no, let's get the hell out of here. I don't remember any of it, but this is what my friend told me. So then I made a video talking about that, okay, and how this kept on unfolding. At that point, that was when I started having the sources reach out to me. Sources that knew inside things that were going on. Sources that I talked to the lead investigator on the story, not the police investigator, but a private investigator that had watched the story that just incidentally passed away in the last year, which I think is part of why this documentary is coming out, okay? Is that now it's safe to come out and tell these stories because there aren't people that are going to be checking a lot of the facts on this. There's a new police investigator that's looking into this case. The interesting thing about this is about when we were out there for the paranormal investigation, the owner told us of the house, okay, whose intention it was, I just want to make this clear, that he told us that. I think I might even, this might be even on the video. He told us that the reason why they bought the house was that they were going to do basically like tours of the house and that they wanted to write a book about it and they wanted to do a documentary film series about it. I don't know that he's involved in this documentary at all, but I do know that he ended up co-writing a book with somebody else because we read it for our true crime book club. It was a poorly written book. It was horribly done, and it was obviously just for money. They bought the house just purposely for that. But anyway, so that was when I started getting contacted by sources telling me stories of things that they knew, connections that they had, things like that. In all of these times, I have never, ever, been reached out to by anybody asking me for information. All of these sources have reached out to authorities. The authorities don't want their information. They're not interested in the information. At the time, what I suggested a year ago when I did these videos was that there was this massive cover-up. That's what I had always heard. That people that were, involved in the case, people that were political, people that had a lot of wealth and money, not just in Indiana, I need to make this clear, not just in Indiana, but this was a nationwide cover-up, okay? That it just happened to happen in Westfield, Indiana. When you go to this farm, okay, today, there are houses that are also built on this property, but back then, it was off of a road that had no other houses. It was a gated house that you had to go back a mile on, okay? And it backed up to a woods. Today, there is the Monn Trail that's a walking trail that goes by the house. That never existed back then. It was completely isolated. People could have screamed and yelled at this house and nobody would have ever known, okay? So supposedly, this witness, this survivor is coming out to speak in this documentary tonight. Okay, so when you go over here, it says, businessman Herb Baumeister of Westfield, Indiana has never been convicted, but police believe he is responsible for killing those victims, mostly gay men and potentially more, after more than 10,000 bone fragments and bones were found scattered across his Fox Hollow farms. They're still finding bones out there today. To this day, they're still finding bones out there. To this day, nobody knows the identities of all of Baumeister's alleged victims of how many people he may have killed. However, with new technology available today, Coroner Jeff Jellison of Hamilton County has opened a new investigation into the notorious serial killer case. When you look back at the original investigation back in the 90s, when the search warrant was served, I don't think we were prepared to really handle an investigation like that, Jellison said. I agree. I don't think they had any idea of the magnitude. He was also known as the I-70 killer. So he was taking gay men, strangling them, throwing them off the side of the road on I-70. The amount of victims that this one man had, first of all, I mean, he is either the #1 serial killer in the United States with the highest account of victims, or he was working with other people. It's one or the other. And none of those other people, no accomplices, have ever been implicated in any of this, which is interesting when you get to the synopsis for the documentary. It says the ABC Studios 4-part series, The Fox Hollow Murders, Playground of a Serial Killer, which premieres February 18th on Hulu, follows coroner Jeff Jellison and his team as they investigate the victims of Herbert Baumeister. As they dive deeper, they uncover potential accomplices, missing evidence, and a key witness whose testimony keeps changing. In 1994, some families of missing gay men in Indianapolis hired a private investigator after they said police didn't help them find their loved ones. There have been multiple reports dating back to the summer of 1993 that multiple gay men have been missing after attending local gay bars. This was literally the year before I got sober, okay? So I just want to talk in here really quick about this private investigator because my source has interviewed him, actually, and he just told me about this today, about how he has a 90-minute interview with him. Hold on just a second. Let me get to my, where is he at? He just started texting me today. Here it is. Okay, today. Don't know if I told you that Virgil Vandergraaf, so that's a private investigator, gave me a 90-minute interview. It was just days before he was having this big operation, so he was pretty candid with me. He also passed away 4 months ago. So we were talking about that, and he's talking about waiting to see what's going to come out in this documentary. It is coincidental that the private investigator that was hired by the families to look into this, that's literally looked into this case for 30 years, that he passes away and then the documentary comes out. I think it's also interesting that I come out with all this source information. 2 documentary companies reach out to me before I come out with the source information. I come out with the source information videos, and neither one of those. Maybe it's a coincidence. I'm not a big believer in coincidences. Both documentaries didn't want anything to do. I mean, I'm really interested to see what this documentary is about tonight. Unless there's 3 or 4 documentaries coming out, and they're all going to take different angles, but I haven't heard about another Baumeister documentary coming out. So it goes on and says, these men were all about the same age, all about the same size. The last place anybody could put most of them was in a number of openly gay bars within a 2-mile area. Yeah, one of them was called Greg's, our place, which was the gay bar that I was going to. We knew that gay men were missing from that area. We knew that. But there were also gay prostitutes that were missing. I mean, we are talking about a marginalized community of gay men that the police turned their backs on. If you go back and you can watch video reports from like Indie Pride at that time, and people that were leaders within the gay community at that time, they were saying that the police were doing nothing about this case. That there was literally a serial killer killing gay men, okay? Many of them transient, many of them homeless, many of them sex workers, many of them people that just, Baumeister apparently thought that nobody would find missing, and they were just missing. And all of a sudden, and then there was no investigation that was done. There was no report. In fact, local TV did, here in Indianapolis, I think it was Channel 6 News, WRTV. If you look up WRTV Fox Hollow Farms, they did a fantastic documentary, probably better than the one on Hulu is going to be, a fantastic documentary about 1.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, about the victims of Fox Hollow Farms they've recently found, because they're constantly finding bones out there. Oh, this was what I was going to say. When we were out there for the paranormal investigation, the owner told us that like literally every other day, somebody comes up and goes, oh, we found a bone in the creek outside of the Monn Trail. Literally every other day. WRTV did a documentary about 1.5 years ago. You can look it up on YouTube. It's called Fox Hollow Farms. It's on WRTV. And I will link all my videos, and if I remember this video, I will link them all below so you guys can hear all the different things I've said. But anyway, they talked highly. I mean, it was such a victim-focused documentary. It was so fantastically done. One of the victims that went missing was the brother of somebody that was working at the Save-A-Lot stores that Baumeister and his wife owned. So he takes a victim that's the brother of a woman that works for him, and she's showing up every day talking about how her brother is missing, and Baumeister knows that because he's killed her brother. And the police were doing nothing at the time. Okay, the police were doing absolutely nothing at the time. They could care less that members of the gay community were going missing left and right. They just did not care. So it's taken 30 years for investigators to care about the fact that gay men were going missing in the early 90s in Indianapolis. I hope to God that something like this never happens again. Or is it? And we just don't know, right? And it says in here, they took the case took off when Mark Anthony Goodyear, who's going to be in tonight's documentary, spoke with a private investigator about a strange encounter he said he had with a man he met while at a bar. Goodyear mentioned that he met a man named Brian at a gay bar in downtown Indianapolis. According to the account, Brian persuaded Goodyear to accompany him to his home, which had a pool and a bar so they could continue to socialize. They went down to the basement where the pool was located. Goodyear remembers there were mannequins around the pool and behind the bar, creating a sort of club environment. I knew something was strange about him already, Goodyear said. I wouldn't take a cocktail from him. He was trying to get me to drink or whatever. So I went to the bathroom with a cocktail, dumped it out, rinsed the glass, came back with a glass of water. They went swimming and engaged in Okay, I had to stop the video because YouTube is not going to like me to go into description about what happened with these victims. But you can go read the article. It's on ABC News. Goodyear says, I knew the guy wasn't right. There were several different attempts so he attempted to try to kill him is what he's saying. Leading me to believe that he has done this before. Didn't even know if he was a murderer. My assumption is that he was. Goodyear then couldn't remember much of where Brian took him, so he took multiple people to be on the lookout for a man who fit Brian's description. During this time, nobody questioned Goodyear's story. Over the years, some individuals who met him felt he knew more than he let on. One of those individuals was Jane Gerlach, a paranormal filmmaker who told ABC that while interviewing Goodyear for a documentary, she found his stories puzzling. She also mentioned that he wrote her a strange riddle in a letter. I think it's interesting that he reached out to her, and he also reached out to my source. I'm just going to say that. I was never attacked, Goodyear wrote in a letter. I am not a murderer. Exactly what am I? Tell me what I am. Not an accomplice, not a victim, never attacked. What am I? ABC News has confirmed that Goodyear has never been charged with any crimes related to the case. Goodyear denies any involvement with the missing persons. I never introduced anyone to Herb Baumeister, Goodyear told ABC News. I would introduce Herb Baumeister to persons, yes. This is your killer. Don't leave the building with him. Don't be alone with him. At the top of my lungs, a shrill shriek while standing on furniture in public places. No, I never set anybody up. Nonetheless, Goodyear, during police investigation, was a big help to leading directives on the right path. Thanks to word of mouth, one of Goodyear's friends spotted a person matching the description Goodyear offered and got the license plate number of the person's vehicle. With that plate number, Indianapolis Police Department Detective Mary Wilson initiated a background investigation and ran a check through the Bureau of Motor Vehicles to find out who owned the vehicle. The investigation revealed that the car belonged to Herb Baumeister. And it goes on and talks about how they lived on a farm. Baumeister had not been on anyone's radar. He and his wife Julie lived with their 3 children in Westfield, Indiana at Fox Hollow Farms. Baumeister appeared a decent father who went to church. But now Baumeister, which is interesting because, I talked to a lot of people, obviously, in the last 30 years, and somebody that I used to work with, they had a lake cottage right next to the Baumeisters had a lake cottage, and she would say, oh, no, like her parents had one, and she would say, we would be there, and he was so bizarre. Just this last summer, I was at the pool, and I was talking about the case, and he had been one of, my neighbors, kids, softball coaches, or something like that, and they were like, oh, no, we knew that there was something way off about him. So when they say this about Herb Baumeister, that there was nothing bizarre about him, go look at the interviews with Herb Baumeister. There's interviews with him on YouTube. He's bizarre. The man was bizarre. People knew he was bizarre. My first impression of Mr. Baumeister when I first saw him at the store was, this is a very strange man. Oh, this is what Mary Wilson said, the investigator. This is interesting. But just he was so very nervous. He has a wife and and 3 children, and he said nobody in his family knew the fact that he goes into gay bars. In 1996, Julie Baumeister told detectives that Herbert had been acting strangely and she wanted to leave him. She recounted an incident when her son found a human skull in the woods near their home. Julie Baumeister granted the police... Okay, this is the part that pisses me off so bad, because if you know about this... they had actually asked Julie Baumeister to come onto the property previously, okay? And she would never let them on the property. It was only when Herb Baumeister had their son at their lake cottage, and she was afraid that they were not going to be able to bring the son back, that she said, I will let you on the property if you go get my son. And that's what happened. And they always leave that out of all of these cases that they do. It pisses me off. But Julie Baumeister granted the police permission to search the Fox, indicating that she knew that there was something going on here a long time before. Because when you look into the case of the son found this entire skull and everything and a skeleton in the back of the woods, right? When he brought it to her, she asked Herb, and Herb goes, oh, because his dad was a doctor, oh, that must have just been some old skeleton of my dad's that I through that he found, and it was back in there. Okay, my dad is a retired plastic surgeon. We didn't have old skulls and skeletons hanging out in the woods behind my house, and I did grow up with woods behind my house. So I think that's such a weird analogy or weird excuse that she just chose to believe at that time, right? Julie Baumeister granted the police permission to search the Fox Hollow property, but only with an attorney, which she talked to them, when they were going to secure the safety of her child. During the search, detectives observed what appeared to be burnt bone fragments from the burn pile. The fragments looked like human bones, so the investigation needed to involve others with expertise in that area. We did a walk through the woods. Okay, it goes on and on and on. They talk about, in total, they found more than 10,000 human remains. They were only able to identify 13 men at the time. But I think it's 21 now, and they say that there's a total of 29 men out there. Baumeister was eventually found in Canada, where he took his own life. The criminal investigation died with him, but the forensics team is committed to trying to identify as many victims as possible. We have 10,000 bone fragments, Jellison said. Well, to put it into perspective, this is the second largest number of unidentified human remains in this country. I made this big plea going public with this investigation and attempting to identify the remains. If you have someone missing, please let us know. We'll get a DNA swab from you. We'll get that entered into the missing person database. So at this point, their goal is to identify as many victims as possible, which I think is really, really important. But I also think it's important for the families of the victims to know what happened to their loved ones. I think it's also important for us as a community that was scared at that time, okay? And it's a community that is still scared today, not maybe of Herb Baumeister, but other atrocities, that we and the victims, the families of the victims, deserve to know what really went on at Fox Hollow Farms. Were there more people that were, implicated in in it? Were there more people that were involved in it? Was this a team of people, like my source suggests? What was really going on out there? I think we have a right to know. And is it going to come out in this documentary? So I will probably be making a follow-up video of this. I talked to my source today about going on video and talking about this. He's been very reluctant to do it at this point, but now he's like, let's do it. So anyway, we're going to see what happens with this documentary. If a lot comes out in the documentary, there might not be any reason to do that. But otherwise, I might be taking a trip soon and sitting down and doing a very extensive interview about what my source knows about this case. Anyway, let me know if you're going to be watching the documentary in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.